Can you guys see my screen? Am I coming through okay? Awesome. Guys, I am so sorry. I think I've been saying 6 o'clock so much and I'm Central Time. I keep saying 6 o'clock. I'm over here just talking to a member about a chart. I truly apologize about being late. I just got it all mixed up. Let me pop out a few screens here so I can see all of your questions. Is audio coming through okay? Am I loud enough? Wonderful. Okay, again, thank you guys so much for your patience. So let's go ahead and get started. I wanted to just kind of take a deeper dive into, how we can really effectively use the information that's coming through on the dark pool, as well as what we see on the platform. Um, Collectively to really kind of start aligning ourselves better with where we're seeing rotation into different sectors, different themes. And we've definitely got a big one. You guys know I just can't stop talking about China. That's definitely been an area that I find this super fascinating, that we're able to see all this come through on the tape and be able to trade around it. I know we've got quite a few people that have been setting themselves up well and positioning into some trades. I know we had a lot of movement in China names today, so we've got people locking in gains already, and I think we have more potential. So I wanted to go and start with just some of the misunderstandings or some of my most common questions so that we can get this addressed. The main thing that just is a constant is, so is that a buy or a sell? And the way I see it, to me, it doesn't really matter. There's nothing that's going to tell us if that was a buy or a sell. There's nothing that's going to tell us directionally what somebody's planning to do with the stock. However, being aware of the names that the market participants are active in is important. Apologize, I had to get some water. And the reason I say that is I want us to start looking structurally at what's going on and what the bigger picture is that would make more sense. And we would need to start thinking about the perspective of an institution, because these are the trades that the institutions are paying, are larger market participants, and they're the ones that are moving the market. So I want to know what names they're active in. I don't want to be trading some stock because it looks like technically there was a MACD crossover and there was the 8 through the 13, but there just not be anything there that's like really going to get this thing going. So I'm looking for volume and price. And this is what we're able to see, the money flow. We just need to start contextually putting it together. So this theme in China names has been just a perfect opportunity to kind of be able to correlate and really have a deeper discussion about where and how to best use the information, the smart money, because we have a powerful system. Data is just data if you can't really put it together. And unfortunately, I know that there's a lot of people who share dark pool information, but don't really have somebody kind of guiding that or have experience with that to be able to kind of help build a story. So thank you guys for joining tonight so that we can kind of like take this deeper dive. I know a lot of you guys have independently been able to really take some great trades. It's so exciting to see. There's so many names, so much activity we've seen, and you guys are doing an amazing job at reviewing this information, pointing it out when there's options flow, and it's nice to have us kind of tackling this together as a team, and those that are sharing their charts and their analysis and their write-ups, thesis behind some of the dark pool activity, and correlating that with the options flow and sharing that in the dark pool room is so appreciated, because you're really helping the community. I'm one person that can only look at so many charts. You guys are picking up on some things that I missed, and so it's just a great balance with being able to make sure that we're making the community fully aware of some good trade setups, and we're getting ourselves on the right side of the tape. So is it a buy or a sell? I don't necessarily, an institution's not coming in and zoomed in on a 1 minute chart when they're trying to build a position. And let's kind of like talk about the institutions, because this is really huge. These, you know, the market participants is major, because you start with, you know, your bigger market participants, and who are they? That's your institutional investors. That's your, you know, mutual fund companies, your banks, your insurance companies, your hedge funds, and these are people that manage billions of dollars, and they've got to put their money, and they have the expectation of being able to provide returns for anybody that they may be personally managing their money. That's diamond hands. Like, those are the real true diamond hands, because they know, they have a team. This is their business. They have a lot more resources, and they're able to dissect and analyze a company from a perspective that I just don't even have the resources for. So they're pretty much doing all the work, right? Like, they're going out, they're coming up with their scenarios for where they see potential, you know, growth, why they think this company would be. Thank you, Rhythmic, for sharing that link. They're coming in, they've got the resources to do all of this other stuff. I just get to go, huh, I see you. I see you over there. What you doing? And we get to see that because we're seeing the transactions come in through on the tape. And so that leads into the second biggest misunderstanding. There's so much of a need, because of those that do watch maybe level 2 and time and sales, to make and ascertain just based off of where that's coming through on the tape, bid side or ask side, that's painting or telling you something more than it really is. It's not. Consider, with what we're used to and how we probably, most of us have learned how to read tape, is that you're looking at a level 2, and then you're seeing your time and sales, your consolidated time and sales, and you're getting a, you know, a red and a green and a red and a green, because it's above, it's below, it's above, it's below. But however, consider this with what's actually happening. You and I can review what's coming through on level 2. That's our lit market. That's the open order book. The whole purpose of trading on a dark pool is to be able to find and work your transaction without the view of the public, without having your intent known, or your transaction out there, so that, you know, so that people can't front run and you can't get what you're looking for. So essentially, you know, somebody who's looking to accumulate large size and to actually build a position, if they're looking to get filled for 1 million shares, when that comes through and records to the tape, regardless of where it records bid or ask, you have to remember that liquidity is not being pulled from the open lit market. So again, liquidity is not being pulled from what you and I can see. It's happening behind closed doors, and once that order is complete, it has to be recorded to the tape. So a lot of the scenario and just the, oh, it's the dark pool, it's the sneaky, not really. They're going to work with their own players, you know, like, they're going to find people that could actually get those fills and be able to take on these larger block sizes amongst their own playground. They're playing on their own playground. So once they actually get an order filled, it's still regulated. It's still regulated exchange. It then goes and has to be recorded to the tape. So that's simply taking that transaction and stick it in wherever it gets stuck in on the tape. So it may show that that was asked with a big green bar, and you go, that was a buy. That is so misleading. I actually have my color bars changed on my charts for that specific reason. And I highly suggest, if that's something that throws you off in your trading, that you also change your volume bars to just one color, because it's the color of the bar is only indicating where that bar closed in relation, or that candle closed in relationship to the previous candle. And then it will either go as red or green. That's not indicating that. Think in a 1 minute time frame, how many transactions have come through. That's not saying everything that came through in a 1 minute transaction. Like, you blink and HFTs are, you know, firing off thousands of orders. It's quick. It's a, you know, it's an algo generated environment. So to kind of that misunderstanding is something that can be really challenging. So if you're having a hard time and you find that the colors of the volume bars are maybe skewing your thought process away from kind of what your technical setup is looking like, change it to one color, because really all you need to know is that volume is coming in and supporting this move up. When we're pulling back on less volume. That's that constant ebb and flow. If we're going to be moving up, we want to do it on large volume. If we have pullbacks, that's healthy. Shake out some weak hands, get them out, shake them haters off. But it's constructive so that you can continue to have price discovery, continuation to the upside. So that's huge with assessing volume, but people trying to use that color coding as a way to dictate or allude to something that is happening, especially when we're looking at these dark pool prints, is going to be extremely misleading. So again, just keep a open mind when you see a dark pool print. Start to think like an institution. Look at that chart on a daily. Is that coming? Is the stock pulling back to the 34, which would be a very constructive support area after a big move, and now we're seeing some dark pool activity come in? That's an interesting setup. We're getting activity at an area that you would expect it at support, buying at support, selling at resistance. So that makes more, you're able to put it into context more to really be able to understand. What's the other one that I get all the time? So the reason we say to use that, especially for during the day, use that as an area of support or resistance, is because they still do come into play, because there's large volume that's transacted at that price. So especially if you're more zoomed in on your charts, having this dark pool activity has been a game changer on your charts, because you can start to see how all this information correlates. I mean, and this is a study of the tape. This is a study of price action. This is something that takes seed time just like anything else. And it's been where I've been like just only focused, heavily focused. And so that's why, I definitely want to share this kind of like looking at it differently, because I know a lot of us, are usually a little more zoomed. We've got a lot more scalping and stuff in the room around positions, but I want to kind of take this deeper so that we can really start to make understand, so we're following right in the shadows of the big money, that they've already done all the work. We've seen them. Now we just need to let it ride. That we're positioned and aligning ourselves with where we have the smart money. So I want to go through this, and the best way that I think will help everybody is to do a case study, because we've had some amazing trades and trades that we've missed out on, but we had the data, we had all of the information. So let me get FinViz pulled up. Sorry again, guys, for being a little underprepared. Let's look up NEO, right? This thing's been on a tear. Look at this move. Beautiful chart. I want to take you in and show you what this looks like having the dark pool study on. There's a separate video if you're kind of newer at this and want to know how I set up my chart. You can go to my YouTube page and it'll have how to get your layout set up like mine. But as real quick, if you didn't know, just dark pool volume study. So I'm going to pop out my chart. I'm going to load NEO. And I definitely want to see more people doing this. I want to see people zooming out and looking at it from a different perspective. Start top down. Yes, we did just have a dark pool print come in during the day, but go and pop your chart out by going over here. Change that to a day, because you're going to see a different story. So let me just kind of zoom in on this chart. But automatically, because we have the dark pool study on this chart, exactly where they were. That's apparent how where there's been accumulation and where there's been dark pool activity, and that you could go back in time and go, damn it, why wasn't I paying attention? It's right there. We've had at this $6 level, we had at this $12 level, and those longer volume dark pool volume bars in orange are showing you how much activity we had, how comparative to the rest that we've had historically, and at what price level. And so looking at this chart, you're able to understand why we want to follow this dark pool activity, why we have the advantage with the tools that we have on the black box platform, and to be able to stay ahead and on top of these names that are seeing the large unusual activity. Because this was not just a million share, this was consistent. And I remember this coming in, I think there was one week where we had maybe 2 or 3 days in a row where we had probably almost 10 million shares coming in to NEO. So when you start to see that, and especially when you're kind of like a name that's been beaten up and you're like, why would this be a place that somebody would come in and just dump 10 million shares? Or would this be a place that maybe looks like you could have an institutional presence? The hard part is we don't have a timing aspect. We don't have that. We know that they're active. What names they're in, what we're finding to be unusual, that they're consistently coming after. But as far as knowing when that stock is actually going to move and actually know that like when they're done with their position, that's the disadvantage that we have. But we're able to prepare ourselves and let the trades come to us. I keep a separate watch list of charts that I go and mark up, annotate, and I set alerts for, so that when I go back and I look at this chart, and I usually look at them all throughout the day, see if there's any setups, anything changing. It refreshes my mind to know which names I'm really wanting to keep a closer eye on, so that if we get options flow come in, I'm on it. My homework's done. I'm not fiddling around trying to check the flow, institutional ownership, was there previous, everything is annotated. I know my support and resistance. I know where I'm trying to enter, and then I just simply place the trade. There's so much letting that trade come to you instead of trying to force that trade. You're going to find you just trade with such a clearer mind. So I have a ton of charts worked up with a lot of alerts, and they go off and I'm ready. I'm prepared. So jumping in a little bit more on this chart, I want to go over and talk more about price discovery. So I'm going to jump over to FinViz because I want to be able to explain this. And I think this is something sometimes people don't understand why the move is occurring, but this stock used to be extremely heavily shorted. So let me just kind of start with why this is important. So like looking at the shares that are in this, let me zoom this because I know this is could be small for those, so that we kind of all see the same information. Okay. So we're going to take and we're going to round the shares in the float, just to make it easy for math purposes so everybody could keep up. We're just going to say that there's 900 million shares in the float, okay? Well, essentially what's happening is you have diamond hands, our larger market participants, coming in and absorbing shares and accumulating positions. These are not traders that are looking to take this and flip it next week for 50 cents. It's just not, it's hard to get your hand on that many shares. It's hard to get that large of a position when you're coming in trying to create a position of size that you plan to hold for years. That you're not letting those shares just go. You're not day trading those or next day swinging them. Like that, once they're in institutional hands, they are in strong hands. And I bring that up because it's also important to know institutional ownership. And you can see that here on FinViz. I also like to see kind of what the growth looks like, because that's a telling story in itself. I'll jump to that screen in just 1 second, but let's go with what we have here on FinViz. And you see this institutionally owned. We're going to round this up to 40%. Okay, so it's saying that 40% of our float is institutionally owned. So let's run some math. So we've got 900, just for easy math, 900 million times, we're going to say it's 40%. Okay, so that's 360 minus 900. So really what you only have available as the open float is 540 million shares, because you've got so many of those shares in strong hands. Now, the data here is not reflective. I'm going to kind of, go through. I know NEO, I think, was 20% short before it really started to make a move. I mean, shorts have had to cover. This has been a short squeeze. Now think of that. If we now only have 540 million shares in the float, and you've got like 25% of those shorted, that's a lot of shares that have to get covered, and that generates and propels the price discovery to the upside. So you're seeing these moves because you had so much absorption down here, shares that were available. Supply has been eaten down here. Now you've got late market participants coming in, because now there's the growth story, there's the interest, there's the price movements, and we've continued to see dark pool come all through here. But this is the ones that are holding strong diamond hands right down here. And it's creating and letting this price move because you have less of the float as people start to accumulate more and more shares that they're not putting back and churning. They're not churning that flow. They're keeping those shares. And that's where you get these moves that go just parabolic. And this is another one, Peloton had dark pool all in, and we saw it, like this was all when it was, you know, between 35 and 40, and you can visually see it. So go start going through some charts and you can see this, but look right here. All of this right here, even all the way up into here, that's all strong hands. All of this is institutions that were way back here, institutions that were way back here. The reason they were able to go from $40 to 125 because Peloton again also had a very high short float, very massive accumulation of shares for what was available. It leads to higher price discovery because there's less to churn, there's less available. Therefore, price can move and move quicker, especially if you've got some short interest once you've seen that accumulation. I'll go ahead and pause there before I go and start anything else and see if we have any questions. What is the, okay, what is the yellow? That's volume profile. So you can find that study here. I changed my color. Here we got volume profile. I changed my color. There's a separate video that goes over on how I set up my chart and a little bit more on how to, different stuff on the platform. So that can be found on my YouTube channel. That was just, I think, 2 or 3 days ago. Institutional float. Let me take a look. Okay, so institutional ownership. I'm Rhythmic. I'm not understanding. Does dark pool? Yes, dark pool is volume. Period. Dark pool is just the exchange that takes the dark pool orders. So everything that's associated with your volume still has to be regulated, still has to be recorded. So dark pool activity and what we're seeing come through that's at larger size, that shares that could have been transacted on the dark pool and in our institutions. So it's not, yes. So yes, to answer your question, the DP would be part of the 39% in this scenario that's institutionally owned. And so it's not institutional float though. I just want to make sure you know that. It's saying that the float is 944 million, but of that float, currently as of last filing, and remember those are delayed, that 39% of that float is held by institutions. But did that help create a better understanding of kind of where and why we see these moves? Like when you look at the float and you're able to understand that here's how much you have, here's how much pie you have, and they've already taken this much, you've only got this much pie left. That pie goes quicker. I'm trying to come up, not my forte, the analogies, but that's so important because that's not something that's often like really discussed, and there could be confused like, why did this stock go like this? Is ridiculous, their valuation is only, how are we at? It has really not really in my perspective one to the other. It's about what allows a price to move is the absorption of the supply. And when we can see that the supply is being absorbed, and we know that that's institutions that are strong hands, that they're not letting go, they don't have weak hands, they're not planning to hold for a month. They're created a very large position for, you know, we don't know exactly how long, of course that's unknown, but you know, this is stuff when you start doing some case studies and looking through charts, you know, go to the main site, do your 1 day, and you scroll out and start looking at, where did we have this, where was the biggest? Down here, damn, we went all the way up here after that because there was absorption of supply at these levels. Now you have late market participants that are just now coming in and they're like, I do like this growth story, I'll buy a bunch. So now you've got other people coming in all through here that are starting to join the party. and you just made this move that just goes from 40 to, almost 130 in 5 months. Same thing with pins. We had that same, but you have to be patient. That's what it's talk about, letting the setup come from you. Because if we got like right here, I could tell just even by this volume bar, right here was some of this right here. Okay, but this thing didn't really, this thing pulled back. Like if I was trying to jump in and just trade and be antsy and not letting a trade come to me, I'm not, I'm like I'm losing money, So I know that they started coming in here. If I would have waited for a breakout, a technical, it still always comes down to your chart. Then you can see where we went and it technically had the setup. We knew as soon as this thing broke out, all of our homework was done. We're in that trade. Or what if it was here that we started to see now options activity coming through? That's like we would consider a hashtag 20 trades. We already know we have all of this together. So it's being selective, you can't play everything. There's too much that's going on to keep up with everything. Just you're looking for the right setup, and that's a chart I'll get to in a minute. So I want to talk about one other thing here that I think it's important because it's something that I review and I look at. So when I'm looking at longer positional trades, I'm doing this like this is my process. So I want to talk about Neo and go over this. This is Market Smith. It's not something you need. I like it because of what I'm looking for and what I'm trying to do with longer positional swings based off of the money flow that we're seeing. So I personally like this. It's definitely not needed. If you guys have a question, you can definitely reach out and I could help set you up. But I want to show you this. Like this is important. Fund ownership of a stock is extremely important, especially when you look at like a lot of the growth names that we have coming in, all the recent IPOs that we've had, that will kind of base set up and we can start assessing, what names they really want to come after. But when you look at this on December 18th, there were only 60 funds that were in and had shares and had a holding. And this has every quarter just continue to increase and increase rapidly, to go from 60 funds that have you within their holdings to now 453. That's huge growth. That's institutions that are like, they know what's up. Gimme, 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 gimme. They're not decreasing, they want in. And that's that's insane for a little over, not even a full 2-year period to go from that. So that's what I'm telling you, and this why this is important is because, again, the institutions are the ones that are holding the shares. The institutions are the ones that are placing these trades in the dark pool. Like that's why this is important and why this is smart money. You have to just wait for the setup. But I mean, the advantage is completely in the fact that we get to see which names they're active in. And I mean, how like being also able to use this to see where there's themes and where there's like rotational money, and being able to correlate that and add the contextually all of the ETF prints that we're seeing, individual name prints that we're seeing, the indice print that we're seeing, like how to be able to like put this all together. I mean, that's amazing to have this kind of data. And I think that's something that's great, especially for anybody who's getting used to and newer to dark pools, to have the constant conversations that we're having on voice all through the trading day. Like that's interesting because we had, XLP come through, and now we're seeing Coca-Cola, Pepsi, Mondelez, and all the top holdings starting to catch options flow. That's telling me something, that XLP, they're already positioned in the dark pool. They've been positioning in individual names. Now I'm seeing options flow. Like that's the trade that I want to be in. I'm not trying to catch the bottom on Apple after a pullback. I want to go like, okay, let me look and focus on where I'm seeing the money flow and where there's good risk reward setups. Additionally, looking at, I don't do a lot of fundamental analysis. I do like to pay attention to sales because sales are important and you want to be able to see that there's growth in sales. Looks like they start off pretty strong here. Then we go to 242 million, kind of drop. December 2019, almost up. So we've got some growth. It looks like March was a tough year, but I think considering everything with COVID and that that backdrop that we're aware of, that you had a lot of companies kind of not coming and meeting their numbers. However, this last quarter 526 million. So that sales is continuing to increase. And so that provides you with a story that can have continuation. When you have quarter over quarter sales growth, that's strong, and you usually can continue that for quite some time, especially if you have something unique and you're part of the theme, or especially with the EV car. That's been huge. We've been seeing that with Tesla and the moves that's made, and LE and all, just the whole sector. You've got a whole sector moving, so you've got strength there. So I want to kind of felt it was extremely important to go and talk about how the float works and why that's important information, and that's always why I talk about it too. Hey, we've got this much in the float, this much short, because if we really get to where there's aggressive smart money coming in, whether it be through the options flow or dark pool, and you've got a huge short flow. That was Wayfair. That was Wayfair when it went from 70, when they started hitting it, to now almost over 300 in short time too, when you think about it. I mean, that's usually, if you, not that you're ever going to catch the complete bottom or the top, but if you were positioned in position swing trading as your style, I mean, that's some amazing returns, and you're outperforming the S&P. Like you were in the right trades, and with this information, that's what we're going to find. And I think right now for us, that's China. All right, let me catch up on questions, and then we'll go through current setup and what I want to kind of talk through what I was looking at before getting into this trade, and why I've been, just really kind of very vocal about, the China theme, and making sure you guys are paying attention to those charts as well. Would you say it's ripe for a secondary offering because they would want to create more share? Perhaps. I don't really overthink. It's had a run. I mean, I think there's been a lot of amazing trades that I've seen people in the room with NEO. I mean, I think you want to still be diligent if you're shorter dated in any positioning, that you are taking profits and locking those in. As far as a secondary offering, not really. I don't know, because I'm not really as familiar with, when companies would want to do that, perhaps. But that's actually an interesting thought there, considering it's still kind of in its infancy. But perhaps. I mean, I just think it's using the case study for NEO was not to show kind of what we need to do with current price action, but to try to more highlight the historical and the information, because it's just such a clean chart. And this one's, I mean, a case study like no other case study, because of all the beautiful elements of this, going from just what we've seen in the dark pool and what we've seen in options flow, and then additionally something that's just been very clean on this chart. A big move up with volume. We pull back a little bit, we're doing it on less volume. We move up on big volume, we pull back, a little sideways consolidation on light volume, we move up. So this is just one of those like really rhythmic charts that are just like, if you need a case study for price action, like print this out and really look at it. Look at those candles, look at those different elements. Where did it hold support? But this is just also so clean in the sense that the volume and the price action is just so telling. The story in this chart right now is just so telling that there's multiple ways to keep this and study this chart. So definitely kind of start doing that. And this would be a great one to work with. All right. Could you talk of timing the entry and exits in day trading with dark pool? Mesh. Okay, so it's still going to go back to the chart. Let me kind of answer that with an example, because I'm about to go over the chart in BILI, and I think it will make more sense. And you're, I'm sorry. Okay, so you're referring to more of the day trading. My example is going to be more on swing trading. I don't usually play dark pool activity that's coming in the same day, unless it's something like really clear. But I think what you'll find, I know we had that in Tesla today. Let's just go ahead and take a look so you can kind of see, because Tesla had quite a bit of dark pool activity all right into here. But I want to kind of show you this because more often than not, this is exactly what this looks like when you're seeing all of these smaller dark pool prints all through the day. When this started to come in, and this was around right here, noon. So look at this price action. This started to come in here. You don't have much discovery as they continued to come in. This thing pretty much made its move and moved sideways. There wasn't this like massive move. Now, I'd be more interested in looking and seeing where we're going tomorrow with this one, knowing we've had all this activity. But right now, this is just more of a sideways range consolidation. Intraday, though, if you're more of a scalper, this is not going to be your cleanest example, but using these levels do help. Let me see, what do we have? That's awesome. Let's look at, no, that's not. I don't have a really good, because sometimes you've got them to where we've got, it's real, you can see where they've come in, and depending on how unusual that volume is, sometimes the smaller lots aren't going to like have as much of an impact. Maybe it's going to be more of a range consolidation day. But when you have those levels that are, clearly you had somebody come in here and then we had one on the top, you can do these like really nice bounces, based off of those levels. As it comes down and it touches and finds support around this dark pool level, that tends to be an area where it bounces. So we'll kind of probably look to do something separately with that. I'd love to have Mike on that session, because that is more of his style, is just like the quicker scalps and kind of see like how he uses it more from that perspective. I tend to kind of remember names and look for setups from names that have had either options flow or dark pool activity, but it's still based off of more of a daily setup with where there could be a potential for for a breakout or a breakdown. Yes, Chris, exactly. That QQQ dark pool that we had a month ago, before, like when the market was pulling back, and I was like, whoa, this is unusual. And so that's part of, something, if you're really wanting to get more familiar, you have to be studying the tape, like our tape meaning the scanner. You've got to go like, oh, was that Apple 100,000 really, like, oh, dark pool and Apple, or was it like, oh my God, 8 million shares just came through at Apple, holy bleep, bleep, bleep. Like that was unusual. That was huge. That was like, whoa, something that big's about to happen here. Same thing with the Qs. Qs will see some size. We get the daily signature prints. We know that sometimes we get on average this many, and we know which days that, like, wow, this is a lot more than we have been seeing. This is really going to be an important level to watch. But that 8 million that hit the tape on Qs that day was, all right, what are they doing here? Let me kind of be on the lookout for a reversal. Let me start really looking at some of the other stuff we're seeing in the options market. Let me start looking at my tech names. What is this setup looking like? Where do I want to see it break through resistance to kind of have confirmation that there's upside trades? I mean, all that still, again, like I keep saying, goes back to your chart, but it's the power of that information. I mean, think about if you were short and you were stuck short biased because that was exactly what the trend was. There was no reason not to be, and you didn't know that like there was that much activity that came in, that buyers were stepping in, that there was large activity that was going to kind of allude us to a trend change and something to be like really on top of. And I think that was extremely well managed in the room, communicated in the room. I mean, everybody was starting to kind of really, I think that was like, everyone was like, okay, we have that. Now we're getting activity in Apple. This is like with good size. Look at this. So we kind of all were able to really work those trades together as a team. I really liked seeing that. I think I'm caught up with questions. If I missed anybody, please let me know. Otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and jump into kind of my process and what I'm looking at in BILI. I'm just going to kind of select one of the China names. and we'll kind of go through this trade and where I've set up my chart and kind of what I'm looking at from a longer, a longer perspective. Oh, sweet. I didn't even see that. All right, let's go to nothing today in BILI, but I'm not, it's, you guys know I've been talking about this name for about 2 weeks, so it's not anything I'm necessarily was looking to add for what we're seeing today, but more from, this daily structure. And so just going to start here before we kind of jump into my other chart that has more of my annotation. But extremely constructive chart in the sense that, we didn't have a lot of dark pool activity down here. We probably did. Our data has loaded historically since February 2020, so that's probably why we don't have the dark pool overview on this side. We just didn't have the data load that far back. However, you can see, once we've started to have price discovery to the upside, we've gotten larger levels of market participation in the dark pool. But this structure to me is just a thing of beauty. You've got a strong uptrend, and now we are sideways consolidation with them. We're moving in a channel here with them. Just they have not stopped coming after this name, and it's not just this one. It's a lot of China names. So it's been able to kind of put together. Okay, we're seeing activity in Asher, in FXI, in Baba, in JD. Oh, now we're starting to see BILI. Oh, that's a good name. Like, I want to look at all these charts that are coming in because it was just too much of a coincidence that we're seeing everything that's a China, anything, seeing dark pool activity. So this was a name that I definitely like. I know when they start to get crazy in the options market with this one, this thing will go wild. So let me go and pull up my chart. Okay, so one of the things that I immediately liked was that we had, this kind of like clean, just go up on volume, pull back on lower, up on volume, pull back. And we've had an uptrend, and now it's just a consolidation. It was a very clear channel. And so one of the first things I looked at is you can see based off of the volume profile, that's what I have highlighted in yellow. So this is another platform. It doesn't have the dark pool feature that, of course we have with Blackbox. But you can see that in this range is where they've been getting busy. This is almost like some of the largest volume we've seen since we've been at these levels. So there's just a lot of activity. So this pricing level is where they want to trade, where they want to, this is where they're looking to buy shares. So we've gone up, couldn't sustain, pull back, we get more dark pool activity, we get more volume coming, we get more accumulation of shares at this level. And so I would say it was probably, I think here when I think that's when I went ahead and took the position. I knew I was a little bit early, so I went small size. But we had the higher low. So otherwise we had been, for the most part, within this channel, and then we've got this higher low. And then, so marking that and more from a technical perspective, what I'd really want to see before like adding size to my existing position would be that we break technically from here. And we did that today with volume. So again, we have had all of the accumulation. We know how active they've been in this name. And now we finally get to the technical break with volume. It's extremely constructive, but we were already prepared. This is something, a chart that I've had that I have up and I've had up for the last 2 weeks, waiting for like, where are we going to go from here? Like, when is this thing going to like really start to get wild? So we had the technical break today. So this is where I'd be looking to maybe even add size or go further dated. I think more so I would like to be able to see this channel resistance, this 51 area break before we have continued upside. Additionally, one of the things that I like about stock charts is I get to look at and assess a few other things that I personally like to review when I'm researching and studying a chart. The accumulation distribution study here. So we were in an uptrend. We're going sideways. However, this accumulation distribution did not wane during that time. There is still accumulation going on to the upside while this one is just taking a breather. Always, 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 they leave footprints behind. Institutions leave footprints of where they've been in the volume bar. So start looking at these where you've had very large, just it's easy to see what sticks out with you because this is trading well above average. You want to make sure you're able to have those closes above those areas. Especially with longer term position swing trading. I prefer to stick with companies that are showing relative strength comparative to what this activity, like what the SPY is doing. If you're going to beat the return of SPY, you need to be in names that are actually beating the SPY. So I like to be able to look and have this overview of saying, okay, here's my stock, BILI, how is it performing relative to the S&P? Additionally, it takes BILI and it goes and looks at, okay, now let's zoom this in a little bit. BILI compared to the communication services, the corresponding ETF, how is this stock individually performing? Because what if that sector starts to see money flow, but this is like the underperformer? I want to find out who's leading because those companies are the ones that continue to lead. And then I also look at the company versus their index, their sub industry, and this one's in the U.S. Internet index. So again, all of this is just it's basing, like there's nothing waning here. We had the uptrend, consolidation, and this everything, every part of this is extremely constructive. So this is definitely a trade that I want to have, and I want to have as a swing. And I feel confident knowing that we've already had the active and dark pool. We're starting to see options flow now, which is also neat when you think about it, because a lot of these names will see the dark pool activity first and that's coming through. But then you got to think like that's not something a lot of people have access to or use. But the options market and what's seen in the options flow and the option scanners, that's all a lit market. There's nothing there that you can take and trade behind closed doors. So everything that's coming through is, we're fortunate enough to be able to see it with black box scanner. You've got institutions looking at that. I mean, that's exposed. Once they start coming in, that's usually when you are inviting other retail, other market participants into, your intent with what you're looking for to set up, in the options flow. But it's not just because you see, one little sweeper. It's all about considering the money flow, and is that coming in like a top hashtag 20 trade? Is that the flow we would follow? Same strike, same expiration, size, time, all of that's still going to come into play. So if you are a newer member of Black Box and you have not taken Mike's options flow class, at least, I don't know, 2 or 3 times, because you'll learn something new every time, please do. Please do, because understanding how to read this information is so important. And Mike does an amazing job with going through the options flow and making sure that every part of this is covered and that you can find some, know what to look for to find actionable trades. And that's important, actionable trades. Any of this could work out, but what are we looking for to really position ourselves with the best of the best? So Mike's class is on Thursdays, register. And if you haven't taken it and you're still maybe not catching some of the things coming in the flow like you think you should, take the class again. It will do nothing but help. BILI, I am right now in, actually, I didn't go as long as I want. I'm moderating a trade in BILI. It is the 45s for November 20th. So not buying the time that I want, but I wanted to try to see if I could catch an ER run up. I do have some other positionings out into April next year, but those aren't moderated trades. And I think we're at 75% up on that, and we just broke out like today. So, that'll give us that'll juice a little bit with the IV as we get closer to ER. And so probably what I'll do is I'll close that one and then take and look for something further dated, because I want to be a part of the bigger move that I think we're going to see in BILI and some of the other China names, since there's just such a strong theme there. Okay, Brandon, how do I know if it isn't sales? I'm I'm not even trying to contextually think about and try to label it as a buy or a sell. And I'd really like us to look at kind of what that means psychologically when you're trying to determine if that's a buy or a sell, because it's not really relevant in the sense of, let me go back to this, Billy. So what if all through here, like let's say we got a dark pool print here and we're like, oh, price moved up, it's a buy. Oh, that must have been the sell the next day because it went down. Oh, there's another one. Oh, that had to be a sell. Oh, that had to be a buy. Oh, that had to be a sell. Oh, that had to be a buy. And you're creating something that's kind of defining that. And I want you to be careful in the sense that if you say this was a buy or this was a sell because you're trying to define it, where that could hurt you more than help you, especially if you keep that definitive in that sense to where, okay, that 8 million shares, that was a sell, and you continue to short something that's clearly going against you because you just think that that's, well, like that was a sell, it had to be because it was this, or that had to be a sell because that volume bar was red, that had to be a sell because that was on the bid, and you're not going to your chart and letting your chart tell you what it looks like is going on. Like, what is the setup? I mean, any part of any dark pool activity that's in here, I don't need to know if this is a buy or a sell, because I could read the chart. This is a consolidation after a strong uptrend. Now, if we came here and we can hold this level, then I'll short it. So I've got alerts on everything that's both upside and downside. So I mean, that's where I've prepared. I'm letting my alert go off to be the direction. But I do know that there is a lot of activity that's been going on all through here. This thing has just not stopped with prints for 2 weeks. That whatever they're doing, I want to be a part of it. So my alert went off. I'm in the trade, or I got in a little bit earlier. We had a higher low. I thought that was constructive, small size, just because I wanted to be active with just, smaller positioning, and then I can go back and add. But I mean, I'm not like everything about this to me is exactly what I'm looking for. To me, this is a perfect setup with what I would be looking for. Now it's just the timing of entry, and that's going to be based off of what I'm seeing technically breaking up or down. You could, thinking about that when we look at like Peloton, you could be starting to see some distribution, but when stocks make these kind of moves, I mean, you want to see that breathe, consolidate, shake out weak hands. It builds energy for more potential. But even looking at this chart, you can clearly see like this pullback is constructive, right? I mean, if you're in weeklies trying to trade calls and you don't like, but this is constructive. Like, this is strong upward move with volume. Pulling back, look at this volume it's pulling back on. Everything about this is constructed, and this needed to shake out weak hands so it could build energy to be able to continue to go up if this stock's going to go up. Now, this can stay sideways, so timing is important, but a break of this downtrend with volume is a good trade. Have your alert set. You already know what you're looking at, but a retest back here to the 34, finding support, that's constructive. They just need to take breaks every once in a while. Let's see here. Take a look at AMWL. Let me take a look. Okay, so the question, can I please take a look at AMWL and the related volume spike at that price? Okay, now, and then what's the question? What are you, can you be more specific? Shaking out weak hands, Grady? I mean, you're not going to continue to find buyers up at those levels, so the buyers dry up. So you need to, be able to get some more supply back in before you can have created demand. Uh, so are you okay? So in this sense, what would I don't need to know if this is a buy or sell. So I could see that there's some activity, and once this came in up here, we rejected. So if I'm looking at this from more of a intraday trade, then then I want to go, okay, well, as soon as this came in, price did not accept at these levels. So you got to know this comes in, this transaction has already been made, right? Like behind doors. Okay. The rest of the market participants are the ones that are not going to continue and pay up here. This has already been, it's recorded to the tape. You can see that there's now volume coming in. So you've got other people seeing this on different scanners, volume price scanners, or spike scanners. This is what the rest of the market's doing with this. They saw this come in and this volume, and it's rejecting price right here. Now, I don't really need to know, okay, was that a buy or sell? Because this has already happened. This is what market participants are doing as a reaction to that volume. So now that nothing there is going to tell me if that was a buy or sell. And contextually, I'm not trying to figure out if that's a buy or sell. I'm trying to figure out where does this come in for a trade. And if we cannot accept at this level, then then that was a short and we continue to pull back. But that doesn't mean if I try to say, okay, well, then that was a sell because we pulled back. What if this thing, so then this is when you want to do and look at the rest of the chart, trying to assess just on a 1 minute chart. I hate 1 minute charts. That's maybe what you have for intraday, and everybody's trading style is different. But like to really look and see, you want to see the bigger picture. You want to see what else has been going on. So really start playing with these time frames when you see a dark pool print come in that you're interested in, because okay, so here we pulled back, but you can see that this is an area that they want. This is where we've had activity. Like, so now I want to go, okay, 15-minute, there's been some activity. Let me keep zooming this out, kind of get a bigger picture and see what's going on here. Start seeing structurally what what this looks like. So looks like we had a lot of volume here, pulled back. We're actually, it looks like we're coming up to this level to test this level and want to see if this is an area where there's going to be acceptance at this price level, and realize everything that I'm saying is in no way am I going, oh, that's a sell now. Oh, that's a buy now. Oh, that's a sell now. It's where's price action? How is it going to come into play and react at these areas? So it is huge to look at this more from a support and resistance, acceptance, rejection, and that's the best that we can do with it, because there's nothing that's going to give us and provide us with that intent of what was truly what somebody's looking at, that we're not the one placing the trade with them. Yeah, this is such a new one. Yeah, this is kind of a newer, this recent IPO. So, also consider, especially with a recent IPO, that you can have a stock that goes like really sideways for a long time as people kind of are discovering and getting familiar and meeting with this company and understanding more of their business model. And, I'm not really a big fan, personally, and this is just me personally, I don't really do the IPOs. I want to see a little more structurally going on there, to where I can kind of see where the story is. And this thing may fly up and just rock and roll for sure. It definitely can, but just not my personal, what I'm looking for personally. I'd like a little more. I'd like a little more history. So what about when there is a ton of chop and consolidation and the dark pools are closely concentrated? What's your Discord username? out of curiosity? I want you to tell me what you think that means. And if you don't know, that's fine. It's not to point you out or single you out, but kind of what do you think that like in a narrative is telling you? Like that's where they want to trade, right? So, another good example, looking at this chart on BILI, this is chop. Like this is not, this is going sideways. Let me go to the one that I have marked up. Okay, so this is chop, right? I mean, this is just chop. There's like, can't break here, we come down here, nice channel, couldn't go higher, pull back at support area, found buyers, moved up, couldn't go. So this is chop. So this is where you don't want to front run until you have a technical setup. And it's like alerts, alerts, alerts. Put your notes. So let's talk about this TME, another China name, because I want to show you kind of what I have as far as annotations on my chart so that you're kind of getting yourself prepared for names that you really do like, that you're spending the time, you're doing the homework. So as soon as you have the setup and your alarms, your alerts go off, based off of the technicals, you can go back to this chart and you've got everything as a refresher. Because what if this thing were to say just sideways for another 2 months? We don't want to front run. There's no need to do that. You're not going to miss the move once you have yourself prepared and you're going through these processes on these names that we're seeing. I mean, it's just, there's so many eyes. Where did I do a weekly? I did do that a weekly. Okay, look at this. You see all these notes, institutional holdings. So I made some quick notes that, so I can know, okay, I could go, oh, wow, yeah, we've had growth. Okay, cool, meets that box for me. Sales growth, yeah, a little. Okay, here's what we got. Understandable, everybody kind of had a tough month in March. What's my chart look like? Okay, technically, full flag, weekly chart, awesome, love this. This is what the measure move look like. They have, as far as this date, 605 million in the float with almost 11% short. There's potential, should this thing start to see solid breakout with volume, that we can potentially be accelerating a little bit quicker because you've got shorts that would need to cover. Okay, bull flag. We've got the measured move. If I could take from here to here, I could also use this as a guide, especially because I'm longer positioned. So I want to let this trade work for me. I'm out to April, that we've got some opportunity here. And then I also on this one did a point and figure count to kind of have a review of what may be some potential for upside targets. So this is one. Here we go. Let me blow this up. So I've gone through and I've counted here with what has potential to have from a low end an upside target of 2050 and from a high end 2350. So I'm doing this as a way to keep myself in a trade that I want to be aligned with. Like people cut too soon. So during this trade, I'll be moving stops up instead of just getting scared because there's a red day. I'm going to know what a healthy pullback looks like. Moving up on strong volume, pullbacks on lighter volume, constructive, no reason to exit the trade. Coming back at levels where you would expect, finding support at the 34, a trend line, something that still is, again, all comes back to technically reviewing the trade setup and managing it from that perspective. The dark pool is just letting us know that this is the names that the institutions and the larger market participants are active in. I want to be in their shadows. That is their playground, and I want to play with them. Yes, CC, I think and I really, it's going to be tough because everybody wants it to be something telling and instant and right away. And y'all know there is nothing in trading that's going to give you the answer. Just go get yourself a magic 8-ball and you may have better luck doing it that way. There's nothing that's going to just say this is exactly what they're doing. Where's the fun? Where would it'd be boring. But let's start looking at these things differently and finding these better setups in these names. Like the ones that have strong potential because of sales growth, the ones that have institutional holdings increasing. And y'all know I'm always in the room. If you need me to look up a chart on MarketSmith, like I can send you that. Just consider timing, you know, like make sure like at lunch or something when it's, you know, just reach out. You guys know I don't mind helping with any of that. But we just need to start focusing more on the right ones. Think about how much comes through the dark pool and how much do I actually call out to the room as being like, hey guys, unusual. So you see that tape going all day long, but how many times am I actually going, okay, now this is interesting? Not many, because so start reading that tape and paying attention, like, and go, why is she calling this interesting? Is it the name? Okay, or you know, and I'll usually say like, we just don't see much in this name, or this doesn't seem like a lot of size, but it really, because they never come in here, like there's never activity, this is one to keep an eye on. And you know, like, I think that dialect's important. And again, nothing is saying I think that's a sell, I think that's a buy. It's going, okay, be aware, I want to chart this up later, this, I want to do some research because this is actually interesting to me. Look at where they're coming. Okay, let me start marking up my chart. What am I seeing? Where would I look and want to get in? Okay, I've got my alert set. I've got notes on here. I've reviewed the flow. I've reviewed institutional ownership. I've reviewed, got my notes. And now when an alert goes off, like I don't have to remember, all my work is done, all my homework, and I'm letting the trade come to me. Yep, let's look at Baidu because this is another one that I love. And can I ask you, you mentioned that you've been on the wrong side of this trade. Talk to me about kind of your style and your approach of how you've been trading it. Is it something that you saw maybe dark pool activity and you jumped in and maybe went a little too short dated? Do you have a short reason that you were looking at technically? Can you give me a little more information so we can kind of dig a little bit deeper? Okay, then more than likely, then you're not get, okay, so I'm sorry, you've been on the wrong side, meaning you've been shorting it and you've been on the put side, and what would have made you go into puts with the chart? And was it because you saw dark pool activity and um, using that wrong? Like, okay, so perfect. Let's work with that. So essentially, you're buying at the wrong time. Um, okay, okay, and you're not giving. Well, more importantly, I would say you want the technical break, right? Because even though you have, and you're working more and looking at weeklies or shorter time frame, but so that means you're not giving yourself much time to make the trade work out. So you really have to be very tuned in and honed in with what you're looking for from a technical setup because you're shorter dated. So you really only you have to be right, or you need to get out of the trade immediately. Don't stick around just because, you know, if I'm talking about this chart, which I have talked about Baidu a lot, and with what other people are talking about, my view, and you have to know yourself as a trader, you have to. What I'm looking at is longer dated. I'm giving myself time so that if this pops and drops, I'm not worried about, because what are one of the things that you could like point out right away? Volume, above average volume right here, this candle, a pop up, and we're pulling back on lower volume. All of this are inside days. All of this is inside days. Let me see if I could kind of zoom in a little bit so you guys can see better. Sorry about that. All right. Okay. You see this huge candle with volume. These are all inside days. This is all a digestion of this big move. And notice that we don't drop below this price. So everything with this is still bullish. It's just not, you're going to risk not catching the move because you're too short dated. And now we've got to where we officially broke the actual resistance level that we've been up against based off of the technical. So, I mean, this was, pull back in here. Okay. One of the things I was looking for too was all of this volume. So all through here, this is an area where we've had the most activity. This is where institutions want to trade. And so they've been able to have this level defended by holding all activity above that. So this is going to come in as volume support, volume at price support. And so everything to me was still constructive and still bullish because we never broke the low here, nor did we break below the volume support level. 1 second, I apologize. Sorry about that. But I think you're on the right, the way you're approaching it is good. You just need to consider how to look at it differently based off of your trading style. So if you're scalping, you're looking for a momentum breakout to be able to take advantage of that move. You're not really overstaying your welcome. You're locking in those gains. Weeklies, maybe you're giving it a few days, but technically you still need to be waiting for that setup to come to you. One of the things I need to go back and read, but I'm a huge fan of the CMT technicians at Stock Charts. So I know this is not a platform that a lot of us use in the room, but it has more of what I'm looking for because I'm not necessarily looking for, this crossover and that and a squeeze feather. And I'm not dissing anything. How we all look at charts differently. We need to find whatever absolutely makes sense to where we can get trades. Nobody's right, nobody's wrong. Not what I'm saying. But I like the PPO because the way they explained it, I think it was Tom Bowley, who's one of the CMT technicians. I just adore his work and I've learned so much from him, how he talks about relative strength and making sure you're sticking with those stocks that are going to actually outperform, or why even be with them. Just park your money in SPY and just, make your little 4% each year. So he's been like a tremendous teacher and just very much value his work. So and I think it's Erin Swinland and her father also used the PPO, and I think that's who even actually wrote the script for it, was her father, who's a well-renowned CMT, been in the game for a long time. So a lot of respect there, just knowing that they have a very solid understanding. But the PPO is similar to your MACD. However, it's going to calculate your percentages a little bit differently. And one of the things that I like is you can now assess the move with the PPO a little bit differently, to where you see here that and this one extends up. This one, here we go. So you see how we kind of like double topped right here? This one coming in is an area to where it's kind of outsized for what this stock has historically done. Okay, so like I would start to look at this is same here. We're coming up to that same level based off of the PPO, to where this would go like, okay, we're kind of outsized for what this stock does, and it's looking at your moving averages and calculating those a little bit differently. So it's still very much similar to a MACD. It's the calculations of it, and they go over. There's Stock Charts School has a great article and kind of goes into more detail with how that's calculated. So essentially what I'd be looking for is if we were to come back up here at this 5 level again to when on this breakout, I would want to say, gonna be a little cautious, because historically that's as much energy as this stock will usually go up to. Of course, you could go past that, and it just means I'm gonna move stops, let the stop take me out, let it work for me until it doesn't work anymore. But that would be where you can see, it gives you a better idea of historically how and when this stock individually gets to where it's more at a level of oversold or overbought. Okay, can I wrap up, which is good. I am going to have to wrap it up. So yes, I definitely will. CMT is Certified Market Technician. It means that they have went to school. You have to be sponsored. So it's more for people that work institutionally. So it's not something I would be able to go and get individually unless I was able to find a sponsor. But you're essentially learning and officially structurally learning the markets. So the CMT, Certified Market Technician, there's an association that's a great website for some good resources and material. But it's just essentially the people, like they're market technicians, they're trained in technical analysis. So to be able to, work Fibonacci's and trend lines and but kind of to the book, like as far as, how it's all come about, learning about exactly what's making up these indicators and, why you would want to look at this. So kind of the whole complete backside, just not like we learned on YouTube. They kind of keep it a little classier. Yeah, so yes, there was the FSLY, and I know that was really far out of the money, but once you have time in the seat, you can see things that are like, okay, well that's like just, oh come on, really? And that you kind of just go, okay, it's cheap, I'm gonna buy 3. Like that was really far out of the money, but they didn't just hit it one time, they came in a lot. So that was I have like 3 contracts. No, I think I have 4 contracts. Like I think risking $100 and I'll just let that do what it's going to do. It's not a lot of risk considering I don't know what they're doing, but interestingly enough, I'll grab a few and find out. So yeah, it could be something with TikTok. We don't really know what they're playing there. We really don't. We've seen that so many times with Flow. I mean, I personally do not understand. I cannot fathom how people trade without having the insight that the black box platform and the community, like I just it's we're so lucky. Like we're so blessed to kind of have this information, to have this insight and build off of each other with what we're all learning together with different ways to approach the markets technically, or the different trading styles. And maybe you still haven't found yours yet, but you're looking and able to align yourself with who's actually moving the market. Like you're not going, oh, somebody said it's supposed, like it helps to take away the noise, and you're just trading in general gets better because you're seeing it. So like definitely want to be doing more of these case studies, and hopefully that was valuable. If you can give me some feedback with going over the Neo scenario, and is that good stuff? Like, do we want to do more of these so that we can understand where we've been and why it's important to know why we want to look at certain things with a closer eye, or give me that feedback. I'd love to do more of these, because you guys are stepping it up. I'm seeing it, and I think it'd be great to just have I'm going to have to cut this one a little bit shorter as far as having a whole bunch of what I thought originally. I do have something that came up unexpectedly. But I want us to do more roundtables because you guys are killing. Like I'm seeing all your stuff, your trades based off of it. You're seeing what's unusual. You're starting to detect this stuff on your own, and you're helping other members, and that's just been amazing to see. So give me the feedback. Some of the stuff you'd like to see more. We can maybe start doing this maybe once a month, where we take 2 hours and we all grab a coffee, grab some charts, and really start jumping in and kind of like really trying to find where we're going to put our support resistance levels, work up why we like it, what are we looking at, and kind of come up with some solid trading plans that we can set ourselves up with for the next week. All right, so probably once every 2 weeks. I'll kind of go in the middle. All right. Oh, let's see. There was somebody who had something that I wanted to go over. All right. One of the things, what am I looking at for this next week? China, like, or until there's clarity and setups, looking back for those constructive pullbacks to the 34 EMA, the 21 EMA. Are we getting, if we're getting dark pool activity, looking at the daily, are they coming in at a good area of support? Trying to, y'all know I'm really big about those relative rotation graphs too, trying to see what sectors are setting up the strongest. And that's more of where I really, that's more my weekend process, trying to kind of go through and look at the ETFs and see, is there a theme going on? I'm liking retail. I think what we're seeing come through money flow, we've been seeing it in the dark pool. We're starting to see a lot more come in through options flow. That's a sector that I want to be able to look at more charts because you've got a lot of good risk reward. We also, I'm not, so like, one of the things I'm not looking at is like Apple right now. I want to find these names that like nobody else is looking at, that like the IV is low. I can actually get some cheaper contracts with time. No, it's under the hood. It's not on anybody's radar. And I'm like, that's the one. I want to find those good risk reward setups. So I'm not, trying to, I don't really play the main tickers that a lot of the other mods in the room play, but that's what's awesome about this team, because Kang will kill his sandbox. Like, he is a sharpshooter. Mario will come in and when she's taking trades, the scalps, the smaller turns. So like, there's plenty to keep us busy, between trying to find some good setups, be patient for them, and also still be able to trade around what we're seeing momentum wise for some scalps or intraday trades. So we've kind of covered all bases with the team. And I think that's extremely helpful. But China names, I'm still going to be looking at setting up, where better entries maybe, where I'd want to add. Earnings will be coming up. I want to do a little more detailed chart workup. So a lot of it will be just kind of preparing myself. But that's for right now, mainly what I'm looking at. It's nice to have the election out of the way. Kind of, no, I guess it's not really the big event, but now we can start looking at things a little bit differently, because think about it, there's some hedge funds that were no part of that V-shaped recovery after, COVID, that they've got to get some money to work and get some returns for their customers, or they're out of the job by the end of the year. So I want to focus on more the ones that are those really good risk reward setups. I want us to get a little more comfortable, like with actually being able to swing one contract and give yourself some time to just move your stop up while that trade's working for you. Because I know that's something that's challenging, not to take those profits right away, but we want to kind of let those green trades run, cut your losers and let your green trades run. So moving up stops and trying to look with letting those trades work for us. When we're following this, we know we're on the right side. We still need to be able to manage that trade, but I think we'll be able to hold on a little bit longer when we know we've got some solid setups and we're looking at it correctly. Aaron, you're correct. Actually, look at the chart of SPWR, SunPower. That's gorgeous. We're big prints. What do we have here? I'll pull it up here. Big prints coming in. And again, you're right, theme as far as having TAN, JKS, we had Sedge and Run and SunPower, but look at this size, almost like 3 million shares here, definitely unusual. But when you, let me put it on this chart, a pullback to the 34, finding support at the 34, beautiful. Definitely want to keep this one on watch because they are coming in at a good level of support. So we'll look at those as well. Look at that, like just a bounce, a beautiful bounce after a pullback. I like that. I like where they're coming in here. And it's look, this is not a shit stock, right? Like up, down, moved up on volume. Like this looks nice. This is a strong, this is not like trying to bottom fish hurts. This is trying to find a good entry on a stock that is showing, look at this relative strength. Look at this outperformance. These stocks continue when they're this strong, they'll have continuation. And this is like a gift to be able to come in and find and see that you've got institutions coming in here that it's a support area. Make sure we don't fall below the low of this candle. Wait for your technical, but nice setups coming into these solar names. I am going to go ahead and wrap this up. I thank you guys so much for joining us. Like I said, we'll be doing a lot more of these, but really wanted to kind of touch on some of those misunderstandings with trying to, define it as a buy or a sell, and you'll miss the bigger picture and the opportunities that are that are here. So thank you guys so much for joining us. I will be doing more of these. These are fun. I like this. I love seeing you guys come up with sending me charts with workups that you're doing based off all this stuff, because I'm missing, I can't keep up with every name. We get almost like 700-800 line items of dark pool data each day, if not more. So you guys helping with that and helping the community is just definitely very much appreciated. This is going to be posted on YouTube. So for anybody that's not a member, this was closed to just members. I do invite you to take advantage of joining our team. We have a 20% promotional code that I'll have below. I would love to have you come and check us out, save a little money and try us. No commitment. So if it's not a platform that works for you, you tried, we appreciate you checking us out, but that's okay too. I hope you guys all have a good rest of your evening. I'll get the report out here shortly, and I'll see y'all back in the room.